Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Donald, for that introduction. Fishing. We rarely talk about it, yet we're an island with a history of seafaring and fishing and all that goes with that. One of the main reasons I got involved in politics was I felt we'd sold out our territorial waters to the European Club to the massive detriment of the coastal communities around this country. And I think it is a pretty unarguable fact that fishing has been one of the industries that has suffered directly as a result of the Common Fisheries Policy, which says that what were your territorial waters are now a common European resource. Now, of course, the prospect of Brexit has made French and Dutch and Belgian fishermen very, very worried indeed. And Monsieur Barnier, their chief negotiator in Brussels, again and again and again says, whatever deal is done with the United Kingdom, reciprocal access, as he calls it, to waters must be maintained. So yesterday, there were 5 British fishing vessels dredging for scallops over on the French side of the channel off Normandy. Given that it's a common resource, that was absolutely legal and right. And they're surrounded by 35 French boats who start throwing rocks at them, and windows get smashed, and it's all pretty ugly stuff. In some ways, actually, it's the French that we should be protesting against, because they're allowed to come over right up to our 6-mile line and catch a lot of fish in what should be British territorial waters. But I think what's going on, folks, I really think what's happening here is the Europeans are getting worried that if Brexit happens, we'll go back to a situation where Britain controls its own waters and they will lose out. Heath sold everything out back in the 70s. Believe you me, this dispute on fishing that you've just heard about, fishing will dominate the debate on Brexit. It'll be a major part of it now for months, maybe for even years to come. And the control of our waters by the Europeans doesn't just extend to commercial fishing, it even extends to the nearly 1 million people every year that go out and want to catch a mackerel, catch a bass, catch a cod as pleasure anglers. More on that later. But for now, you know, we're supposed to be regaining control of our waters in 2020. But does this incident highlight the need for it to happen sooner? I'm going to go to Aaron Brown. He's a founding member of Fishing for Leave. He is a fisherman himself. Aaron, good evening.
Hello, Nigel. Are you well?
I'm well. So, this dispute, this rock throwing, it's not the first time it's happened, is it?
No, it's not. And it got a bit worse in rock throwing. I spoke to some of the guys that were involved in it, or lads who work next to them today, and it got down to the French were actually trying to run nets and ropes into the British boats' propellers to foul them. There was petrol bombs thrown. And I mean, it's absolutely premeditated. As a journalist said to me, you don't have national news crews away with you unless it's planned out. So this is premeditated action. It was vicious action. People can understand a bit of argy-bargy, maybe some egg throwing or flower bombs or something like that to prove a point, and you would say fair play. You're kind of trying to maybe stick up for yourselves, but to go to the level of violence and intimidation that was deployed and premeditatedly deployed is just it's endangering lives at sea. And it's hypocrisy in the extreme as well. So the French would say, Aaron, they'd say, well, hang on, these British boats were in French waters. Well, they weren't in French waters, Nigel. As you highlighted there in your kick-off in your show, these are EU waters now. We sacrifice them to EU control, and under that is equal access to a common resource. So the British boats were quite legitimately fishing there, and the French don't like it. And as I say, it's hypocrisy in the extreme, because for 40 years we've had to endure the French and other EU fishermen catching 60% of the fish in British waters, and insultingly, much of it's taken just off the south coast and Cornwall, as you highlighted. We can't fish inside 12 in their coast, that's reserved for their boats, but they can fish up to 6 in ours. But isn't the truth of it, Aaron? Isn't the truth of it that if we I mean, I'm just talking English Channel here. If we look at cod, we look at haddock, I mean, 2 very, very popular table fish. Isn't the truth of it that in the English Channel, the British are getting far less than 40%? Oh, yes. Well, just to nail this once and for all, because the Ramoners have peevishly decided that they're going to try and lecture fishermen who they know nothing about and how we're actually well off.
Do you mean people like Bob Geldof?
Absolutely, although he didn't even so much try and do facts, he just shouted obscenities at us. But to give you some figures here for the listeners at home, I'd like to run through these if you could oblige me.
Yep.
Because as I say, they've caught 60% of the fish in British waters, and although we contribute half of the waters to the common pot, we only receive 25% of the internationally agreed catch limits that the EU agrees on our behalf. But it's worse in the English Channel, as you say. So here's some headline figures for the Ramoners to remember. Monkfish, the current share under EU relative stability, which is heavily skewed against us, 81% to the EU, 19% to Britain. If we have a good, clean, hard Brexit, revert to international law, undo that surrender of Edward Heath, then under international law, you're entitled to a share of the fish in your waters based on the predominance of that species in your waters. So under that principle, instead of 81-19, it should be 55-45. Cod, 92% to the EU just now, 8% to the UK.
8%. So let's just... I'm going to stop you there.
Yep.
So you're telling me that the British fishing fleet are allowed to catch 8% of cod landings in the English Channel?
Yes, the EU takes 92%.
The EU being what? France, Belgium and the Netherlands, I guess?
Predominantly those countries. The Spanish obviously have a bit as well. Haddocks, 90% to them, 10 to us. It should be 35-65. Herring, they take 100% just now. It should be 39% to them, 61% to us. Whiting, that's the worst. 93% to the EU, 7% to Britain, but it should be 35-65.
This is a complete, total outrage. How have we got to this?
An abject, weak political class that are imbued with liberal caring and sharing. We'll be your best friend. We'll give you our fish to get in. We'll give you 39 billion to get out, and so it goes on. But just to give you an idea of what that's actually worth to Britain, Nigel, just now, everything in the channel that Britain gets just now in the EU, we get 61,000 tonnes of fish to catch. Post-Brexit, that should be 192,000 tonnes, worth 355 million in the quayside, and if you process that, it goes up by about
Okay, no.
and that could be worth 1.4 billion.
Is there any negotiation with the European Union on fisheries, or are you of the view we just unilaterally have to take back territorial waters?
There doesn't need to be any negotiation at all. They've agreed under Article 50 the treaty ceases to apply, and when that happens, so the CFP ceases to apply also. That means all the rights of access go, all the current catch shares go. We revert to international law when it's ours to manage under international law, yes, cooperating with our neighbours, but we get a fair, just share based on the amount of fish in our waters and can manage it how we please. The only way that they can be in our waters after the 29th of March, if this government capitulates and allows them back in a new deal.
Well, I have to say, it seems to me that Barnier is using fishing as a major negotiating chip in exchange for free trade, and it seems to me, Aaron Brown, that the British government are prepared to give that to him.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if Theresa May at helm. The Tories, if they ever want to survive as a political party, need to get rid of her, need to chuck Chequers, and then perhaps when the British fleet can go back to catching its own resources and its own waters, we won't need to go to French waters to try and catch scallops. OK, listen, Aaron, thank you very much indeed. Well, Fishing for Leave, unsurprisingly, saying this is a complete disaster. Have to say, I declare an interest. I'm a lifelong angler, sea angler. I fish in my channel. I can't believe the strictures that are being put upon me by Brussels, even as a pleasure angler, let alone as a commercial fleet operator. Aaron Brown has just said that we are only allowed to catch 8% of cod in the English Channel. I think that's an outrage. Come and tell me I'm wrong. Come and tell me Fishing for Leave are wrong. Come and tell me that actually what happened with the French and British is justified. You can do that by calling 0345 6060 973. Equally, you can text your views to 84850. You can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, Facebookers who are watching us can comment too. Sean is a brand new caller from Barton on Humber. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Nigel. How are you doing?
Well, it's funny, really. I could be angry about the way the French have behaved, but actually I'm angrier that Michael Gove has not been stronger, because surely the point of Brexit, Sean, the acid test of Brexit, was to take back our territorial waters.
Of course, yeah. The point that I was wishing to make is a couple of points. Now, it might interest Michael Gove this as well. Young's, the famous fish food,
Yep.
sort of.
Yeah, with a big processing plant in Grimsby.
That's right, yeah. Now, they have shut down, or are in the process of shutting down, one of their Northern Scotland concerns. And they've transferred it down to Grimsby. Now, that's one thing. They have also lost a contract, a major contract, and another fish firm, Five Star Fisheries, is in the process of closing with a loss of hundreds of jobs. Now, to me, that doesn't say there's a lot of confidence in the fishing, in the fishing industry about, Brexit, whether we stay in or out. Now, the other point is...
Well, it should, Sean, be currently a boom industry with loads of money going into it, if people believed the government was going to deliver, but I'm not sure anyone does.
No, the other point, Nigel, is that, Five Star are in the process of shutting down, and I forget where the quote comes from. I was reading about it last week. I take a great interest in the fishing industry, being from the area along the Humber.
Yeah, sure.
And the other point is that world cod fishing quotas are going down this year anyway by something like 14%, regardless of Brexit or no.
Sure.
So that is something which hasn't been really put out in the open, I don't think.
But Sean,
there are a lot of quotas which are being put down.
But Sean, fish stocks wax and wane. I've been to Iceland. I've met the fisheries minister in Iceland. He told me how they managed their fisheries. They won the cod wars against us back in the 1970s. And I look at Iceland, the Faroes, Norway, who manage their own waters well, manage their resource well, where chucking back dead fish is illegal. And Sean, I say to myself, I'm convinced we could run our own fisheries better than the European Commission.
I think, I think you're right there, Nigel. I think there's definitely some plus points, but we don't see that confidence in places like Grimsby.
No.
I think Grimsby is actually, I forget where this quote comes from as well, that about 70% of the town want a post-Brexit deal with Europe.
Meaning?
Meaning that the same laws apply now to the fishing industry. I don't know why or how, but this is what I was told. And
well,
there was a few quotes.
Sean, it sounds stone bonkers to me. Grimsby once had 300 trawlers. It's now got 8. That is what's happened to British fishing industry. It hasn't happened in Iceland. It hasn't happened in Norway. It's not happened in the Faroes. Says it all to me. Tell me I'm wrong. 0345 6060 973. This is the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 7:16. A tweet that's coming to me from Andrew Giles, a fisherman, who says, shocking scenes from our French counterparts in international waters 15 miles off the coast of France. The French Navy stood by and watched while our boats were brutally attacked. This is not acceptable. Imagine if we did that here. Well, I can't imagine if we did that here. So what is the response of all of this to the Cabinet Minister responsible, Michael Gove? Here he is earlier on today.
They were fishing legally. They had every right to be in those waters. The dreadful scenes that we saw, which occurred earlier this week, were quite wrong. And it's the responsibility of the French, it's their waters, to make sure that people who have a legal right to fish can continue to fish peacefully. And we've been in touch with the French authorities in order to make sure that can continue.
So that's just sorted all out. We've been in touch. I've no doubt they'll say, oh, Mr. Gove, thank you ever so much. We'll make sure this doesn't happen again. Couldn't he have been a little bit more robust? Couldn't he have just said, actually, do you know what? We're going to send the British Navy, Fisheries Protection, over with our fleet to make sure this stuff doesn't happen. Not a word of it. And I've been corresponding, and I like Michael Gove personally. I've been corresponding with him. I mentioned earlier, it wasn't just our commercial fishermen suffering, and I repeat the point Aaron Brown from Fishing for Leave made earlier. We are allowed to catch 8% of cod in the English Channel, EU fleets 92. What about our anglers? Up to 1 million people every year chuck out a line. They go mackerel fishing on holiday in Cornwall or whatever it is. We are in 2019, because of an European Commission edict, banned from landing a single bass and taking it home for our supper. It's based on completely kooky science. The commercial fleet can go on catching bass, but we are banned. As a result of it, people are losing their jobs. People involved in the leisure industry are losing their jobs. I've corresponded, I've spoken with Michael Gove. He says to me it's wrong, it's unfair, it's unjust, and it's based on bad science. But Michael, what are you going to do? Well, do you know what he's been doing? Going to Brussels and saying, please, can you rethink this? It's wrong. And they say, Mr. Gove, we're far too busy to speak to people like you. You see, there is no negotiation with Brussels on fishing. None whatsoever. Brexit, one of the key pillars of Brexit, was doing what the Norwegians do, doing what the Faroese do, doing what the Icelandics do, taking back what is rightfully ours and managing it properly. And my feeling, folks, is the British government haven't got the balls to stand up for what is right, because they're using, just as fishing was used as a bargaining chip to join the common market, it's being used as a bargaining chip as we leave. It is, in my view, a complete betrayal of our coastal communities and our maritime heritage. I feel very, very strongly about this. Your message is coming in. It's not just the fish, but the declining coastal towns. D, I agree with you. Graham in Devon says, what's the point of having a navy? Where were they? Graham, can you see Michael Gove sending them a navy to support our people? I wish he would. I don't think they've got the guts to. The French have a sense of entitlement to the fish in the channel, says Dave from Netley. Dave, it's not a sense of entitlement. They have been granted it by the unelected European Commission. They take what they see legally and rightfully as theirs. All we have to do is to reapply the international law of the sea. Nigel Farage, banging on about fishing again, an industry which employs fewer people than Poundland and that contributes less to overall GDP than Harrods in Knightsbridge. It's the big issue of Brexit, apparently. Well, I tell you what, Otto, you can take the mickey all you want, but how about this? We take back control of our territorial fishing waters, we manage it properly, and it's going to be worth £3 to £5 billion every single year to this country, and it's also going to be the regeneration of many of our coastal towns and communities. Otto, you can write these people off if you want to. You can say they're irrelevant, but actually, I think, in our hearts, as an island people, this matters. Tell me I'm wrong, folks. Dave is calling from Hornchurch. Hi, Dave.
Good evening. I've just got back from Lowestoft and Yarmouth, and I can tell you, all up that east coast, it is devastated. People have lost their jobs.
It's gone.
I go up there regularly, Nigel. I've never seen such poverty. And at the end of the day, Otto, well, I can't believe it. I spoke to Nick Ferrari, your colleague, a few weeks ago, and he's very good, Nick. He said to me, surely we've got a reciprocal arrangement with the French. So I said, well, look, next time you sail into Calais and Boulogne in a British trawler and start loading fish, I won't be with you and you won't be getting out.
Yeah, well, there you are. No, absolutely.
And in fact, Nigel, I tried to use that as part of my election in May, and it didn't go down too well. I only wish this had happened then. I don't wish problems with anything, but I only wish that had happened then. But in actual fact, it was you some years ago persuaded me to go in this. I spent 4 years as a councillor in good old Havering. Yep. So, as I said, but you're absolutely right. We won the Cod Wars, and then the EU...
Well, actually, Dave, we lost the Cod Wars. We lost the Cod Wars. So we were fishing, our distant fleet, going out of Hull and Grimsby, predominantly, some from Peterhead, were going up and fishing in Iceland's waters. Iceland used their navy, and shots were fired to get us out of what they saw as their waters. In 1976, it was internationally decided and decreed that actually any nation state could have as their own exclusive economic zone up to 200 miles off their coast or up to the median line. That became, Dave, the international law of the seas. So we lost our access to Icelandic waters, but we got, from what had previously been 12 miles of ours, 200 miles of the North Sea, around Scotland, Ireland. I mean, amazing. And yet, Dave, at the same time, we joined the Common Fisheries Policy and sold it all away. I would argue that the fish that swim in our seas are the greatest renewable resource that we possess as a nation. We've given them away. We've got to get it back. Dave, I thank you. Going to move on to Chelmsford, speak to Molly, a new caller to this show. Hi, Molly.
Hi, Nigel.
So, what do you make? What do you make of the government response to 5 British boats being pelted by rocks?
Absolutely disgusting, quite honest. It's absolutely disgusting.
What, our lack of spine, our lack of courage, or...?
Well, I mean, our government are completely, blatantly spineless. They just haven't got no guts in them to do anything for us.
Guts and fishing, yeah. So, Molly, I mean, we've got a transition period, right? So, the earliest anything's going to change on fishing is at the end of 2020. And I wonder, in that intervening time, how many people working in commercial fishing and angling will lose their jobs? Isn't it time the government acted sooner?
Well, it is. They should. I mean, if we get a no Brexit, it'd be better still for them. I was saying to your people that you take on, before we joined the EU, fish on our plates was quite cheap. As soon as we've gone into the EU, the price has gone up and up and up. You know, it got expensive. Come to the EU, and our price, we have our fish, and we should go right down again. Hence, we get cheaper food where,
So cheaper fish and chips with Brexit, Molly, is that what you're saying?
Yes, it'd be a lot cheaper, wouldn't it?
Well, it should be. It should be. Although, we have rather lost our habit of eating fish apart from fish and chips, and a bit of education, I think, is needed there. Molly, I thank you for your call. Margaret on Facebook says, French fishermen are prohibited from fishing scallops from October till May. British boats do not respect these dates. They are fishing 12 miles off the French coast. Excuse me, do you really expect the French to be happy? Should the same rules apply for both, surely? No. Well, Margaret, you're right. There is a bylaw in France that stops them scalloping. But the real point here is the British were fishing 15 miles off the French coast. If you go down a beachy head tomorrow and stand on the top, you will see, between the 6 and 12 mile limit, plenty of European boats fishing over which we have no jurisdiction at all. The French fishermen may have had a grouse over this, but hey, look at what they've got, Margaret. Look at what they've got. They have got 80% of the cod and haddock in the Channel, and the British fleet has got less than 10%. If any fishing fleet should be protesting, it's not the French. It actually should be ours. But we are kind of a bit too polite and a bit too nice to actually want to do that. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive at LBC. It is now 7:30. And so as French fishermen surround and attack British fishermen fishing 15 miles off Normandy, the question I'm asking is, do we need to leave the Common Fisheries Policy before the end of 2020? Should we scrap transition when it comes to fishing, or is this all just going to get worse? And my prediction is fishing is going to become a bigger and bigger and bigger totemic issue when it comes to Brexit. For me, the acid test of Brexit is taking back our territorial waters. I see little sign the government wants to do it. Indeed, I believe they want to throw it in as a bargaining chip on the way out, just as they did on the way in. They couldn't really give a damn about our coastal communities. Before that, Dominic Raab, the Brexit Secretary, today suggested that the UK and the EU may not meet their deadline for the 19th of October. So this is the much vaunted summit that Theresa May is going to. It looks like that timeline is slipping. In fact, I think, do you know what? I'm 99% certain that timeline will slip. Raab today was giving evidence to the House of Lords EU committee. Raab insists that he and Monsieur Barnier have a good professional relationship, but talks may creep beyond the target. Let's hear him.
I'm confident that a deal is within our sights. We're bringing ambition, pragmatism, energy, and I expect it will be, and if it is matched, we get a deal. We're aiming for the October Council, but there is some measure of leeway.
And surprise, surprise, Monsieur Barnier actually sounded rather nice and positive today. Here he was.
We are prepared to offer Britain a partnership such as there has never been with any other third country, based on an ambitious free trade agreement, security and foreign policy.
Well, isn't that interesting? Because that's exactly what the previous Brexit Secretary, David Davis, set out to do in the first place. Barnier is now talking that language. Is he talking with forked tongue? Does he want a free trade deal, rather like the Canadians have? Or does he want a tariff-free deal with free movement of people and the continued jurisdiction of the European Court? The pound has risen strongly on the back of Monsieur Barnier's comments. I would, if I were you folks, not take him at face value. I think he will do everything he can to keep us linked as closely as possible to the political project. That's my view. Back to fishing. What should be done? I'm going to go now to a real proper expert. June lives in Lowestoft and lives and breathes the fishing industry. June, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Nigel, what a day for fishing. Where's my Prime Minister? I ask myself. If that was Margaret Thatcher, she'd have been out there. She'd have HMS Victory out there in the ocean doing its stuff. But yet again, where is she? I haven't heard of... I think she's commented, done a slight comment.
Oh, but June, you're getting too worried. Look, we played the Michael Gove clip earlier. Michael Gove has spoken to the French authorities, so it's all going to be okay, June.
Well, it's not going to be okay, and if Mr Gove is listening, it's not okay. We want full control, that's the 200 miles, and all the fish within that. I have been chosen, well, my office in Lowestoft has been chosen by government to be the renaissance of the East Anglian fisheries. That will be worth £350 million a year to Lowestoft alone. That will put the coastal communities back on the map. We're going to be a pilot scheme. We're going to catch the herring, which belongs to us.
Yep.
We're going to process it in Lowestoft, and we're going to send it to China. That is the plan. I've been working with DEFRA. Mr Gove is aware of it. George Eustace is aware of it. Now, if Theresa May wants to come along and spoil that for us, then she's got a damn big fight on her hands, because we will not allow that to happen.
And just, June, just to make people aware, when it comes to herring, the North Sea is now full of herring again, isn't it?
Absolutely full of the stuff. And foreign vessels are catching it. You know, and I listen to Otto. You know, Otto, if you're listening, can't we have an industry on the coast then? These city people, they just have no idea how difficult it is for our coastal communities. We've got a chance in a lifetime, Nigel. We must take it. The people of Great Britain must help us. Everyone listening this evening must listen and look at the news. Look what the French have done to us. We've got 84 pulse trawlers off the coast of Lowestoft here, down in Ramsgate, pillaging the seabed. It's a 10-year science that nobody has looked at. It's banned in China.
Pulse trawling, for those that don't know what June's talking about, is literally using strong electronic shocks in the water to catch fish, and the problem, we believe, is that many, many fish get damaged by this and just left for dead on the seabed.
Yes, they do. It's not what they catch, Nigel. That's what they kill. They kill plankton. They kill little whelks. They kill crabs. But the Dutch have been allowed to just do this pillaging for 10 years. Where is CFAS? CFAS is meant to be one of the greatest scientific sea shop there is in the world. Well, they've done nothing.
June, I love your passion for the coastal communities. I know you run the fish auctioneers there already, and you've got your big herring plan, and you're entrepreneurial. But June, let me ask you, honestly, do you really think the British government are going to deliver the kind of Brexit that you need in Lowestoft?
I didn't. Since I've heard and that you're coming back, I'm feeling a little bit more. Yeah, I'm running. I've got a fairly good MP where I am, and he can see it. I know Mog's on the case. I'd just like to hear a little bit more from Boris. But do you know something, Nigel? I really truly believe that the people of Great Britain are behind the fishing.
You know what, June? I do too. I think Otto's got this wrong. The fact there aren't many of you, the fact it's not a massive community, it's the totemic symbolism, isn't it, of us as an island nation.
Most definitely. This is what it is. People want it back. It's our what was the word? What do we call that? Well, it's our sovereignty. You know, fishing. You know, who was the Labour guy with pole and the sea is what is ours. You know, come on. I mean, it's just...
heritage, history. It's all... June, listen, I love your passion. Keep fighting for lowest often for jobs. Really, really do. Thank you. I get by text from Matt from Sidcup. Thatcher destroyed industry in this country. I can't remember any fury then. Can't you, Matt? You must be too young. There was loads. Other than from those who wanted to save it. Those horrible lefties. The Tories couldn't give a tinker's cuss for the common man or woman, yet they're still in power. Well, Matt, I think whether you're Labour or Tory, you can always accuse the other side of ruining industries. I wonder, in all of this, where's the Labour Party? What is... Jeremy, if you're listening, what is the Labour Party's position on the common fisheries policy? Because I haven't read it, I haven't heard it, I haven't seen it, and Mr Corbyn, these are working class communities that traditionally have been Labour voters. I've not heard a word. I've got a new caller called Colin, and he's ringing me from an independent, sovereign country where they have a 200-mile exclusive economic zone. And if any foreign boat goes into their waters without buying a licence, they are at the point of a gun impounded and taken in to a Norwegian port. Colin, you're in Stavanger in Norway. Good evening.
Hello there, Nigel. How are you?
OK, so you've got your sovereign waters. You've got your 200-mile, exclusive zone. And from what I can make of it, you've got a booming angling industry with British people and people all over the world going there, and a pretty big commercial industry too.
It's the second industry after fishing. After the oil.
Yep.
The oil industry wins by a long way. But,
sure.
Fishing is it's huge.
It's huge. So is it in good, healthy state?
Oh, I would say so, yeah. I know a lot of fishermen. Pretty much, I live on the coast, pretty much all the way from Oslo right the way around up to Lofoten and above. It's booming.
And my understanding, Colin, is that much as we, at the moment, still discard, which means throw back dead, about 50% of what we catch commercially, in Norway, it's illegal to throw anything back dead.
I don't know that, Nigel, but I can tell you that they're a very eco-sensitive country, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Yeah. Everything in Norway has to be landed, measured and weighed. And what they do, the scientists there, they say, right, that bit of the sea has been fished pretty hard. We're going to stop all fishing there for the next 6 months, allow the spawning season to happen. It's proper coastal fisheries management. When are the UK going to wake up, Colin, to what Norway's got?
I don't think... I think it'll be after WTO. I think that's the only way UK is going to get out at the moment.
Well, I tell you what, we may be able to negotiate a compromise of some kind on many aspects of our withdrawal from the European Union, but the one thing, Colin, that Barnier will not budge an inch on is the common fisheries policy. Thank you. Let's go to Harrogate and speak to Nicola. Nicola, hi.
Oh, hello, Nigel. I'd like to thank Jean for talking so passionately.
June, yeah.
From Lowestoft.
Yeah, she's fantastic, isn't she? She really, she's got a big investment already in the industry there. I think her ideas for herring and processing and export, they're fantastic, aren't they?
They really are. And as I spoke to one of your researchers, my problem is with the way our British fishermen have been treated by the French is this is no new way the French treat us in any way or form with our farming products, with anything they disagree with. They absolutely throw the toys out of the pram and they behave like complete lunatics.
Yeah, and they kind of get their way, Nicola, doing it, don't they?
They do, because, frankly, they are almost like terrorists in themselves. And, the government can't deal with them. They can't stand up.
Well, they're aggressors. I won't use the word terrorists, but they are aggressors. But we are a much more docile nation. Nicola, should the government stand up and say we're leaving the CFP on March 29th next year?
Definitely. But I also would like to say that I think Michael Gove is on the right track. I think that what he has done so far as animal welfare, is good. And I'd like to support him.
Well, Nicola, I would like to support him. I like him as a person. But when I hear him and his junior minister, George Eustace, they say, isn't it great? Because of Brexit, we're going to get more quota. I don't want more quota. I don't want to beg from crumbs from a table. I want back what is rightfully ours. Nicola, thank you. I'm asked here, are they French scallops or British scallops? I'm asking for a Brexit-supporting friend who doesn't eat shellfish. The answer is they're EU scallops. The European Union has nationalised fish and shellfish in our waters. The point from us Brexiteers is we want to take back national control and what we see as being rightfully ours. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 7:45. 5 British boats fishing 15 miles off Normandy are surrounded by 35 French boats who pelt them with stones. We hear, not been proven, but we hear even petrol bombs may have been thrown. It's ugly, it's nasty. Fishing is becoming now a big issue in Brexit. Simon on Twitter says to me, nobody should be scallop fishing. It wrecks the seabed. And Simon, you raise a very interesting point. Taking back our territorial waters, which I absolutely want us to do, being able to catch our own fish, which I absolutely want to do, but I do think the environmental side of this is absolutely crucial. Why are the Greens? Why are Greenpeace? Why are everybody not screaming about a common fisheries policy that sees up to 1 million tonnes of fish dumped dead back into the sea every single year? I even dumped a box of haddock myself outside Parliament just a few months ago. Scallop dredging is damaging to the seabed, there's no question. Beam trawling, dragging huge, heavy bits of kit over the seabed is damaging. We do need to find environmentally sustainable ways to catch fish. Simon, I'm with you 100%. But think of the hypocrisy of this. The Goodwin Sands off the east coast of Kent, Ramsgate Deal off there, and you've got there a huge hatchery and breeding area for all kinds of fish. It's a marine conservation zone, and yet we're allowing 3 million tonnes of sand to be dredged off there to expand Dover. Surely there are better places we could do this, and I do genuinely think it is not just fishing methods, it's dredging, it's plastic, it's many other things. We really have ignored our seas, ignored what's happening to them, and we are a coastal nation. So Simon, I'm with you. I don't just want to catch loads of fish, I want to make sure we're doing it in the correct way. And the CFP has been an environmental disaster. Please, any Green voters, come and tell me now on 0345 6060 973 that I'm wrong. I dare you. I dare one of you. Dan is calling from Leicester. Dan, hi.
Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm well. Now, you couldn't be further from the sea than anybody, really, could you, in Leicester?
Smack bang in the middle of the country.
Absolutely. But we're still an island, Dan, aren't we?
We are just about, yeah. First of all, I don't condone what the French guys did today. That was silly, stupid, bit dangerous.
Dangerous, yeah.
Yeah, not to be condoned at all. What I wanted to say was, while the larger fishing fleets from the UK have their quotas controlled by the EU, the smaller working class communities that fish in smaller boats off our shore, their quotas are controlled by our government, aren't they?
Yeah, and Dan, this is very interesting. So, and the trouble is, the deeper we delve, the more complex it gets, the more difficult it gets. But basically, there is an under 10-metre fleet. They generally are the small boats that we see in little harbours, up on shingle banks, and yes, they are getting a pitiful allowance of our national quota compared to the bigger industrial operations. Yes.
But it has nothing to do with the EU. That's our government's fault.
Yes, and I haven't argued against that tonight once, have I?
Okay, cool. No, I just wanted to get it on the record. The second thing I wondered, you can probably help me with this, from what you were saying about the Cod Wars earlier on. Wouldn't we have to leave the UN as well in order to take back full control of our waters?
No, because the UN recognises the international law of the sea. It is the UN's law that you have up to 200 miles or the median line. Now, look, I am not saying that. I mean, look, hey, 200 miles off Scarborough, 200 miles off Peterhead gives us kind of what Norway's got. It could be fantastic for us. Clearly, in the English Channel, given that Dover is, 21 miles across at its narrowest point, clearly there has to be a little bit of live and let live, historic access, all the rest of it. But, Dan, my point is that we should be in charge of this. And what I see, Dan, with Norway, Iceland and the Faroes, is if you're in charge of what is yours, you actually care about it. I'm not sure the abstract, distant European Commission get any of this.
I think they do. They're trying to feed 500 million mouths with fish.
So why are they throwing 1 million tonnes back dead into the sea every year?
Well, this is an imperfect beast. Although
imperfect? Imperfect? It's more like a disaster, Dan, isn't it?
Anything that tries to take care of 500 million people is going to be difficult to manage, but it was recognised in 2013 that changes to the CFP were having a positive effect.
We keep hearing it, Dan. We keep hearing that.
If you can tell me that you think that the best way to influence the EU is from outside of it, then we could have a discussion about that.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dan, I saw a cartoon once, right? I saw a cartoon once, and it was a fishing net. And it was a fish inside the net saying to a fish outside the net, I think it's better to negotiate from within. And that cartoon summed up my approach to it all. Back in 99, Dan, when I joined the European Parliament, I thought, well, I'll join the Fisheries Committee. And I started going to it, and I realised very quickly it was a complete and utter waste of time. There was no vote that we could have that could literally change anything. Dan, we have to leave.
I disagree, obviously. I personally think that proactive MEPs who turned up to meetings and voted on legislation.
But if the vote, but Dan, if the vote is advisory and not legislative and meaningless, what is the point?
Well, we do have a hand on that steering wheel. We can push to make those votes legislative rather than advisory, but we can't from outside.
When I was there,
we talk about the EU as if we have no hand on the steering wheel, and we do. We're one of the big three until March. But one of the greatest tricks you guys pulled is to convince people that we're a vassal state within the EU. We're not.
Do you know, Dan, in the years before the referendum, on 45 occasions, we had tried, ultimately at the European Council, to get something vetoed, and we lost 45 times.
Unlucky.
Unlucky? Dan, there's nothing I'm ever going to do to convince you about the European Union, but I thank you very much indeed for your call. As an Englishman, I recognise it's a bit unfair on the French. No wonder they're annoyed. Well, look, I do get why the French are a bit annoyed, because it's 15 miles off Normandy, but given the quotas they've got compared to what we've got, it's our guys, if anybody, that should be screaming and shouting. The trouble is, there's so few of them left, you'd barely hear them. Let us take one more call on this subject tonight. John, who's a new caller from Chippenham. John, good evening.
Hello, Nigel. Nigel, we've taken back our control, right? We had a referendum which we won. And now, basically, I want to know what's happened to all the fishing quota we were granted. Where's it all gone?
John.
You know.
John, hang on. We voted in a referendum to take back control. We haven't done so.
Well, we had control of our fishing quota. I want to know where it's gone.
We have no control over our fishing quota.
We do, because
we go every December.
International agreements, and it's not there now. Where is it?
We go every December on bended knee to the Fisheries Council in Brussels, and we say, please, sir, we hold out our bowl. Please, sir, can we have some more? And generally, John, they say no. And at the moment, as you heard earlier, we are catching 8% of cod in the English Channel. That's where we are.
We we want to know where our fishing quota went. It's been sold away, Nigel. Buy it back and we'll fish the fish.
We have. I've got many desperate fishermen have sold their quotas, seeing it as the only way out. Are you arguing, John, we should renationalise fisheries?
People like the Spanish and the French and other people from third countries who now control our fishing waters. So they've got to buy it back if they want to.
But
it's a quota system.
But we allowed this to happen, John, didn't we?
Hello?
We allowed this to happen, John, didn't we? I mean...
Yeah, but it's nothing to do with the sort of referendum debate, which is basically a Tory party argument. So why are you tying the two together?
John, 55% of people who voted Leave were not Tory voters. I'm bored with hearing that Brexit is about the Tory party. It's not. John, Brexit was about, one of the main key planks for me was taking back our territorial waters. I would agree with John, mistakes have been made in the past. People have given up. They've sold quota. I get that. We're in a very, very bad place. I'm sorry for the aggravation British fishermen found off Normandy yesterday. Believe you me, you're going to be hearing a lot more fishing over the course of the next few months. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'll be here tomorrow at 7. At 10 tonight, it's Matt Stadlen. But up next, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you.